We have a special way to start this show presentation, something we did not expect. Harold, can you come up and show us what you brought?
Jakits Agai Yesnavut Takaviti Sastiye Uchineri Yesnavuch Ya co-talkers Nora Kakshya Hai Isuchin Ya Vadita Vasibu Ye Uchini Pastiyut Uchish Kushahin the Adi Aya Akishai Yasa Chai Sakuch Chai Kugan Haru Katangi Kanket Khayna Kakhia Isa Akhia Khan. This hat was in the care of my father. One of his names was Pushkin. This hat was made by my great-great-grandfather, or the Bakhlawadi, for my dad's namesake, Pushkin, who was my father's uncle, his uncle, and his uncle, 3 generations before him. And that's the hat that you see on the Code Talkers medal. That was Dean George that wanted it put on me. And just so you hear a little bit of the language they spoke, that's all they spoke together at that time. Trust in it, Khatange, US, that's all they spoke with each other was Tlingit. This is the hat that's on the medal. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. That's a great honor. So, with that, I would like to introduce Vince Winters, who is the commander of the Sitka American Legion. Harold or Robert? Henry Dean Burton, post number 13. Vince is a veteran of Desert Storm. He was an NCO that ran a Hawk missile unit during that very successful military effort, and so he knows and has experienced what combat is like. And he took a great interest in this Tlingit Code Talkers because he was very concerned that their history would be lost. And so without further ado, it is my real pleasure to invite one of the most generous people I've ever worked with, Vince Winters.
Good evening. Oh, that's not working. Let's try that. There we go. Good evening. You got my notes, so I'm gonna go around. Once again, my name is Vince Winter. I'm the commander of the American Legion Post 13. This is my 3rd year as commander, as my fellow veterans keep throwing me under the bus, but I'm here. And I'm glad I am. I acknowledge that we are located on ancestral homelands of the Tlingit people who have lived in Sitka since time immemorial. We express our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors, the Tlingit, for their enduring care and protection of the Tlingit Ani. Sitka Kwan, tribal citizens, scholars, community members, military personnel, and veterans, it is with great pride and reverence that I stand before you today to honor the extraordinary contributions of the World War II Code Talkers. Let us honor their memory and ensure that their sacrifices are never forgotten. For in their story, we find the embodiment of our shared history, our resilience, our unbreakable spirit, and the remarkable legacy of our brave World War II Alaskan Code Talkers. As we gather here today, we must acknowledge the sacrifices and the resilience of these remarkable individuals. They were not merely soldiers. They were keepers of their language, the guardians of cultural identity. In the face of adversity, they refused to be silenced, and their actions have left an indelible mark on the pages of history. However, the Code Talker stories are shrouded in secrecy, for they were entrusted with the most sensitive of military operations. They were forbidden from speaking about their experiences, even to their own families, for fear of compromising the integrity of their mission. Yet their contributions were invaluable, as they played crucial roles in confounding the enemy and ensuring the successful outcome of countless battles. Many today have firsthand experience with the harsh realities of the Indian boarding school system, where children were forcibly separated from their families and stripped of their cultural identities. It was precisely this shared experience that would ultimately become the source of strength for our Code Talkers. Despite the trauma and adversity they faced, they remained steadfast in their love for their country and their unwavering commitment to protect their people. But these Code Talkers were not deterred by the weight of this silence. They were driven by a deep love for country, a desire to protect their people, and fierce determination to fight for freedom that had been denied to them for so long. They endured the horrors of war, the pain of separation, and the anguish of secrecy, all while carrying the hopes and dreams of the tribes on their shoulders. As they donned the uniform of the United States military, these men found themselves torn between two worlds, the world of their ancestors and the world of their adopted country. They knew that the success of their mission depended on their ability to keep the roles as closely guarded secrets, even from their own families and loved ones. Imagine the burden, knowing that your actions could change the course of the war, yet being unable to share that knowledge with the ones closest to you. In the face of unimaginable danger, they stood tall, their voices echoing across the battlefield, conveying vital information that saved countless lives, helped secure victory for the Allied forces. Their actions are a testament to the resilience, the courage, the unbreakable spirit of our First Nations people, and the only code in history that has never been broken. These men were not just warriors, they were also fathers, brothers, sons. They left their families behind, risking everything to defend the very freedom they were denied them. Their love for their country was unwavering, and their bravery was unparalleled. Imagine, if you will, the daily trials they faced on the battlefield, the constant threat of the enemy interception, the need to maintain the utmost secrecy, the weight of their responsibility to their fellow soldiers and the families back home. These men were not only warriors, but linguists, strategists, and custodians of their people's most sacred traditions. For these warriors, their love for the country was no mere notion, but a deep-rooted conviction that transcended the boundaries of their own people. They donned the uniform of the military, pledging their allegiance to the nation, and at times that had been unkind to them. Yet they carried the mantle of duty with unwavering pride, knowing that their service would pave the way for a future where the people could stand tall, reclaim their rightful place in the annals of history. So today, we honor the silence of these guardians, these keepers of wisdom. Their stories, once hidden in the shadows, must now be brought to light, not for the sake of sensationalism, but for the preservation of our collective heritage. We owe it to them, to the ancestors, and to the generations yet to come to ensure that their sacrifices are never forgotten and their legacies never diminish. Thank you. Before I start with the presentation, I would like to thank a few important people that actually, during this crusade of securing Louis Menard as a Code Talker and bringing the rest of the Code Talkers history front, they were critical. First of all, my family. for giving me the time to do this. They realized the passion I had, and while they're watching TV or something, I'm researching, going through people's attics and trying to find paperwork and all to fight the system that will not let me say that somebody is a code talker until it was ultimately proven. I'd like to thank the senators, Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, for their backing, and Congresswoman Mary Patola. Without their letters of acknowledgement and their pushing from the inside out, we would not have been successful. Dr. Rosita Whirl and Ricardo Whirl from Alaska, Chuck Miller, George Bennett, Peter Karras, Majors Joe and Florence Murray, House Backman and Nicole Forio from the Here Museum, Claire O'Halloran Hill, and Johnson, for they proofed and checked everything. I would make sure that I had everything correct. Lucas Goddard from the Waypoint for Veterans, Rachel and Denise Roy from the Sitka Chamber of Commerce, the American Legion on all levels, their historians on down were very vital, and many others that had driven their passions was for us securing the title for Louis Menard. And I also personally would like to thank 3 individuals that every Wednesday night would hear me complain how the Army was not accepting stuff. So Joe and Carol Daniels and Carol McCarr, thank you for listening to me when I complained and keep egging me on to keep doing this. All right, so without further ado, Tlingit code talkers, we're gonna break the silence as much as we can tonight. I worked a lot with the late Chuck Miller, and he was a wealth of information, even though he was not a military man. He fought hard for Louis Menard, and it was ultimately his letter from the Sitka tribe of Alaska that secured the final notch that we needed. In his letter, and the letter is back there if you do read it, he calls these people a kaga, which means warrior. Very powerful word, and exactly what they were. Just a brief agenda, what we'll go through, we'll just pass that. You don't need to read that. So, the Tlingit Code Talkers were instrumental in establishing a new framework for military communications during World War II. Their unique ability to engage in secure communications using their indigenous tongue provided a tactical advantage that was unmatched by enemy forces. More than just a soldier, they were the cultural agents ensuring the language were preserved and recognized globally. Their contribution serves as a crucial reminder to the role that the indigenous people play in military history and the broader narrative of the American identity. A lot of people know and heard of the Navajo code talkers, but they were not the first. The Choctaw were the actual first code talkers in World War I in France. Back then, they were called phone talkers. And these gentlemen originally started with 3 and ended up with 19 of them, would run communications back and forth to the lines. It was that terminology, excuse me, that brought World War II around to automatically go into code talkers. And during World War II, since everybody knows the Navajo code talkers, during Iwo Jima, over 800 Navajo codes went back and forth during that day. 800, just from the Navajo. Before the use of the code talkers, they did it the old-fashioned way. Cryptology, breaking code, which would take several weeks to months trying to figure it out. And then once we had it figured out, they changed the code again. And then the Germans came out with the Enigma. And 6 months it took us to break the Enigma. And then also, after we did it with the Bombay, the Enigma was able to break that code in 20 minutes. But that was not really instantaneous. Excuse me. It's hot and dry up here. So the timeline of the code talkers. We're going to go from World War I. 1918, Quechua code talkers. 1940, recruiting training completed in 1942 of the United States Marine Corps Type 1 code talkers, which were your Navajo code talkers. In 1968, the Navajo were declassified. Remember, there's 33 other tribes. but only the Navajo were declassified. In 1982, on August 14th, President Ronald Reagan honored it with Navajo and Native American Code Talker Day. And this is the first hint that there was more than just the Navajo. 2001, Navajo Code Talkers are honored with the Gold Congressional Medal by President George W. Bush. The Navajo Code Talkers, the original 29, are the only ones individually that receive gold congressional medals. Since that day of the new ones, only the tribe receives the gold, and the creation of the silver congressional medals are now awarded to the Code Talker or their families. In 2008, the rest of the tribes were approved for congressional medals. Still, we didn't know who the tribes were. Can you imagine these individuals knowing that they had a part with their words to change history, still had to keep silent? In 2013, November 20th, the Tlingit Code Talkers were officially recognized and held at a ceremony at the U.S. Capitol. Along with the other brothers that they had, all were finally recognized. And then in 2017, the Navajo were recognized at the White House event. Once again, only one tribe. And then 2021, October, ANB-ANS resolution for the 5 Tlingit Code Talkers that were approved came down, and that's where I actually met Peter Karras, invited me down, and got to meet the vice president that awarded it in honor of his uncles. And that's when I realized we had local code talkers. Before that, I didn't know. In 2023, 3 new tribes were recognized. So we went from 33 to 36 tribes that were part of the Code Talker program in World War II. And in 2023, September 13th, Louis Bernard was officially recognized by the Department of the Army as a Tlingit Code Talker. That was a long, long battle. And it's still, right now, he's only been recognized by the Department of the Army. We are waiting for the Secretary of the Treasury to go ahead and approve the Silver Congressional Medal, and then we can set up the date to properly recognize Louis. So here's your Code Talkers. Pacific Theater. Everybody knows the brothers Mark Jacobs Jr. and Harvey Jacobs. Both of them served in the United States Navy. They were both at Iwo Jima. Unfortunately, I couldn't find Spike. I know Spike had a lot of history with the brothers, and I remember talking to him during the presentation to Peter that he had a lot to say and knew a lot of things, and I would have loved him to share some of his stories. In the Philippines, we had Richard Bean Sr. and Robert Jeff David Sr. Mr. David was supposedly a basketball all-star down where he was from. Richard Bean, according to the records I can find, his nephew, he said he only talked once about it and let it leak that a lieutenant was passing him when he was talking to David at he was in the same unit but a different platoon, and utilized them to go back and forth with code, and it just makes sense. And this is where the math gets wonky. 5 Tlingit Code Talkers. So we have George Lewis Jr. Not only was he in the United States Army, he was in the Aleutians, he also, at the end of his career, served 45 years with the Salvation Army. Hell of a commitment. But who is he talking to? We had our first Code Talker celebration after Peter and I got together, and I determined that we needed something out there to take it the next step. So we rented the movie theater, showed the Code Talkers of World War II. We had everybody invited in for free. We celebrated down with the Shikwan dancers and the drummers at the American Legion. And at the end, where we're cleaning up, comes Hither Rachel Roy. My grandfather was a Code Talker. Back of my head starts clicking. That makes sense. 6 people, yes. It takes 2 to talk, especially when you're separated from so much islands. Thus became the quest, but now, as you said, Louis Bernard is officially a Code Talker. That fills that problem in. What's it take to become recognized? It takes piles of paperwork, people's attics, bluefish, old records, DD-214s, excuse me. And here you can see a group, a Zoom, me talking with the staff of Senator Murkowski's, giving all them paperwork, and this is an ongoing thing. This was every week. Then after we got everything we needed, we sent it in, and then Miss Darcy at the Department of the Army would send it back saying, no, this is that. Never ending, and I never stopped. This story needs to be told. This gentleman was a code talker. During his memorial, Mark Jr. said there in his own words that Louis Menard was a code talker. So you have an official recognized code talker saying that he's a code talker. So, but that still didn't give me the leeway I needed. But once I got the letters from the Worrells and the senators and the congresswoman and Chuck Miller one, I'm proud to say that in response, based on the information, he is now classified as a code talker. So the introduction to our Tlingit code talkers, their unique contributions, cultural significance, and strategic importance. The vast scope of World War II, its necessities, and the involvement of a diverse array of military personnel, including the invaluable contributions from Native American soldiers. In this context, the Tlingit code talkers emerged as vital assets, utilizing their linguistic heritage to enhance the military strategies, sustain operational success. The highlight of the Native American involvement underscored both their historical significance and as they incorporate diverse cultural perspectives in broader narratives during the war. So what made them special was who they were. The rich cultural heritage, their indigenous language in the pre-war context, all built together. They were a force to be reckoned with. Love for a country at that time period that was not really loving them. Love for their families that made them go on and fight for them. The recruitment process for the Tlingit code talkers was not merely about language proficiency. It was a testament to the trust placed in the indigenous speakers to uphold the critical communications. Through their training and contributions on the battlefield speaks volumes about their adaptability and significance in military operations. The strategic advantage of employing their native tongue became a key factor in operational success, reinforcing an imperative of the indigenous language in bridging cultural divides in wartime. The selection process for the Tlingit code talkers were pretty much just on the fly, as the story from Richard Bean. The brothers, they were found out that they spoke back and forth between the ships, and that code was secured at that time as well. So there's a strategic advantage in this because these codes can't be broken. If you watch the code talkers of World War II with the Navajo, this one gentleman says that the one was captured, and the codes were going back and forth with this type 1 language. And they were asking, what are they saying? And he said, I don't know. I think they're having breakfast. They're talking about eggs. And that's what it translated to. At the type 1s, did not know what message they were passing back and forth. They knew the codes. Just like the military, we have a phonetic alphabet, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, and so on. They created a code with the type 1. So each letter of the word was a different type of word, but in type 2 is completely different. So the creation of the code type 1, you can see here the Navajo code, which was used on the Comanche, Hopi, Missisquoi as well. These words were translated. So they would speak this word and then translate it to the person on the other side, and that's how they get these words, but it's still slow. Faster than 20 minutes, but still slow. The great thing about a type 1 code talker, though, which I discovered, and because this kept getting pushed back at me, saying it's not on his DT-214. Now, DT-214 is something us military people, when we get out, it's the only piece of paper we really, really should pay attention to. And unfortunately, when we're young and we get out, we don't. It tells you everything you've done in the military service, every award you received, your training, if you qualify, if you don't qualify. It's a very important piece of paper that's on those little NCR pieces back in my day. And if you were a code talker that was type 1 trained, it makes it easy. It says code talker. Easy. Problem is, type 2 code talkers didn't go to an official school with the United States Marine Corps. Type 2 code talkers were a unique structure. Ours were the Tlingit language presented difficulties, and they would speak. Just plain the English speaking one would say, hey, you need to transmit it. They would transmit it the best they could. And the person on the other side of the mic would translate it back to the other English speaking thing, and they had their orders instantaneously. As for instance, the Tlingit people do not have a word for submarine. So it's translated to as iron fish. The key battles, though, we talked about Iwo Jima. That's where the brothers were. The Philippines were, Beans and Davis were in the Aleutians. And then, Beans, they were in the Philippines, and Lewis and Menard were in the Aleutians together. Don't get old, you can't read things that well. Okay. So the deployment of the Tlingit code talkers in key battles exemplified their transformative impact on military communications. Their ability to relay information quickly and securely allowed military leaders to make timely decisions that significantly influenced the outcomes of various engagements. Success stories from the battlefields reinforced the effectiveness of the contributions, highlighted the critical importance of effective communications under distress combat conditions. Now, we talked about secrecy. Back in World War II, loose lips sink ships. The main thing that if you watch the old Bugs Bunny cartoons with the gremlin and all, you'll see these posters all over the place. They're trying to tell military personnel, keep your mouth closed when you're out on leave and stuff like that. Don't say, because loose lips sink ships. And our Tlingit code talkers took that seriously. There was that pride that we're not going to do this. We were going to keep this secret. So here's a key deployment battle. We know the brothers were in Iwo Jima. Harvey was on the USS Morrison, and his brother was on the New Mexico. And when the New Mexico got hit by a kamikaze, his brother didn't know until days later that he had transferred off before that hit. But the success story is this famous picture of the Marines lifting the flag at Iwo Jima. Now, I said the Navajos had 800 coded messages during this engagement. There was over 2,400 codes spoken that day with the tribes combined. 2,400 successful, uncompromised codes. That's how important our code talkers were. That is the honor that our code talkers had that they could not share with anybody. The path of the Tlingit code talker was always fraught with challenges that transcend the battlefield. Their cultural values sometimes clash with military norms, leaving them to navigate a landscape of loyalty to both their nation and their heritage. Experience of discrimination and sacrifices made further underscore the complex interplay between the service and cultural identity, adding layers of significance to the contributions in World War II. The challenges faced by because this is the stuff they don't want to talk about. They faced all kinds of challenges, cultural barriers. Navigating the complex dynamics of military life often conflicted with the Tlingit culture values and practices, creating internal and external challenges. Discrimination experiences. Despite their contribution, the code talkers faced racial discrimination within the military ranks, impacting their service. And personal sacrifices. Many code talkers made significant personal sacrifices for their country while simultaneously defending their cultural identity and heritage. By keeping their language alive with the code, they were able to keep their culture alive. So there we go with recognition and legacy. Was gradually, the recognition of the code was gradually evolved, shifting from the obscurity to acknowledgement of the unique contributions of World War II gained prominence. Recent initiatives underscore the pivotal role Indigenous languages play in historical military narratives, promoting emotional initiatives focused on cultural preservation and respect. The legacy of the Tlingit Code Talkers served as a vital reminder of the value of the inclusivity and recognition within historical discourses. As I said, back in 2008, they recognized 33 tribes that were code talkers that nobody ever knew about. Unfortunately, many of these code talkers have passed away at that time. Many of them took the secrets with them. They took their secrecy very personally. And unfortunately, now we're trying to figure out who these individuals were. And sometimes we're fortunate, like with Louis Menard, that some of that history was shared before he left our world. But some of these people took it with them, and now we're just haphazardly finding paperwork. If somebody was a code talker, then the battle begins to prove it. Unfortunately, the Army DD-214s back in that time period, that whole place went up in flames. So 80% of that paperwork is gone. But as I said, if you're Army, it's not going to say it on your DD-214 if you're a Type 2. But all these tribes played a significant part in World War II. And it's amazing when you see them all together like this. And here's our Tlingit tribe. And as I said, 2023, 3 more tribes were finally recognized for being code talkers. So I question you, is there really only 6 Alaskan code talkers? Or is there more that we don't know about? In examining the contributions of Tlingit code talkers, along with other indigenous groups like the Navajo, we gain a greater appreciation for the diverse logistic strategies employed in military communications. Each group brought forth unique cultural nuances that shaped their code development, revealing both similarities and differences in their approaches. This highlights the invaluable contributions of the Native American languages overall in the war effort, emphasizing the strategic advantages inherent in their use. The legacy of the Tlingit Code Talkers reaches beyond the wartime contributions, playing a crucial role in revival of the Tlingit language and culture. Understanding their narrative fosters cultural pride and reinforces the community's identity and the contemporary challenges. As Tlingit speakers actively engage in language preservation efforts, they instill a collective memory that honors their ancestors' sacrifices, ensuring that the heritage remains vibrant and relevant in future generations. And I have Mr. Chester here, who's probably got one of the most powerful quotes I've ever read in my life. My wartime experience developing a code that utilized the Navajo language taught how important our Navajo culture is to our country. For me, that is the central lesson, that diverse cultures can make a country richer and stronger. So honoring the Tlingit Code Talkers, what we do here locally. As I said, we rented out the theater. We had the Shikwahan dancers and the drummers. Senator Mikowski and the commandant from the Coast Guard came down and presented Peter with the flag that flew to the Capitol in honor of his uncles. And we're growing. This past year, we do a Veterans Day beer every year. This Veterans Day beer that just passed was in honor of the Tlingit Code Talkers. There's a can. If you guys would like one, you can stop at the Legion. We have plenty of empties that honor them. It tells you on the back all about them and all. And every year we try to change it to keep focus on something. But yeah, we try to keep it alive. Can't be forgotten. We're in the process of, as soon as you walk into the Legion, we have our Code Talker display. Currently, it's better than what it was, but it's getting there. Some of the items that we have on display are actually in the back of the room here. The Chamber of Commerce, Lucas Goddard, and a couple other entities did donate a lot of money to make this right, and we're taking our time so we do it justice. We do not want to undercut our Code Talkers. We want them to be honored. When I pass away, which could be tomorrow or 20 years from now and all, I want to know that display is going to still be there. I don't want that heritage lost. I don't want their sacrifice lost to time. And that's the problem today is how many of our code talkers have we lost because of secrecy? Memorials of recognition, documentaries and media representation. They have them out there. Do not watch the Nick Cage Code Talker movie. That has nothing to do with code talkers. On YouTube, the child code talkers is on YouTube, very powerful. They also have a documentary, The Code Talker, and it's Code Talkers of World War II, the great. All of them are fantastic. The Code Talkers of World War II is really good. It deals with the Navajo Nation. They talk about the wartime. They're actually talking with the veterans, and they're talking about the wartime service and all. And then they return to Iwo Jima. And a lot of these veterans didn't want to go, and their families said, look, we have to go. And they're glad they did, because now what was a war-torn surface is now blustering with plant life and stuff like that. They all left, being of the land, decimating that land over there. And now they are at peace because now the land has came back in vibrance. And they met the people over there that's in Iwo Jima and the Philippines and all, and they were welcomed with open arms. So they actually had closure at the time. Powerful, powerful movie. Ongoing recognition efforts here. You see here, this is Cody Dayish. Cody Dayish is a film producer. We brought him up for our first Code Talker celebration. Him and his mother and his brother came up. They are producing a movie called Unbroken Code. It's going to follow two Navajo code talkers from their youth through the military service and to the end. So you can see the trials and tribulations they had to suffer. He wants to tell the true story, not the Nick Cage movie. So in conclusion, the key takeaways: significance in military history. The Tlingit Code Talkers emerged as critical components of the military communications and strategies. And in summary, they hold a significant place in military history, exhibiting how language can become a formidable tool in wartime. Their legacy embodies resilience as they navigate challenges that tested their cultural identity during the tumultuous periods. The lessons learned from the contributions remind us of the profound importance of honoring diverse histories and fostering respect for indigenous identities in contemporary societies. Their narrative encourages future generations to draw inspiration from the past, ensuring that the rich tapestry and cultural heritage continues to thrive in the future. The photo that you see here is one of four. This is from the National American Indian Heritage World. These are the brothers, Mark and Harvey Jacobs. And the other three posters deal with Navajo, the Comanche, and I think the Choctaw, of their individuals that were also code talkers during that time period. Powerful poster, says it all, especially the two brothers standing side by side. So, and at this time, my presentation is done, but I do want to open it up to this very special guest I have here tonight. I have families of code talkers, and I would like them to come up if they would like to come up, or I can bring the mic down there. This Monday, I did this presentation down at Blatchley, two of them, and Rachel and her mom, Denise, had some real stories that drove home these individuals. And I know there's a lot more here tonight, and I would love for them to speak. Any volunteers? Okay.
I'm not afraid of the stage, but I am more comfortable here with my family. First, before you walk away, come back over here. We wanted to present you with a gift, and this is a gift from our family. It is a Tlingit tana, and the tana translates as a copper shield. And today at the service that we did for my grandfather, we talked about the copper and its significance within the Tlingit culture. The shield, and we tried to get him a big chain, and look, it's not even that big. I said he's a big guy. But it is a sign of the acts that you give, and someone shouldn't buy it for themselves and be boastful, and we wanted to recognize you and give you this gift, to be able to be proudly worn, to know that we really appreciate all of the work and sacrifice you did to make this all happen. Yeah, so, hey, you want to stand with me? Thank you. I'm Rachel Roy, and, I'm here with my mom Denise and my daughter Madison. I am, this has been a 20 years in the making, really. When, Grandpa passed away, but there wasn't anything that we could do. And today, actually, we went to the Memorial Summit or the National Cemetery, and we were able to put ashes and into the wall there. And on the wall now will say co-doctor, and he'll be the first and the last to get that. It's quite wonderful. I think it's also really, I think, great to have tribal people as part of the Alaska Day celebration. So I thank you all for that. I think it really shows us where we are with our community. Some of the things that I shared, and I was just, we had our sixth graders there, seventh and eighth graders. We did presentations at Flashley. And, some of the things we talk about with our young people and understanding what the people who came to Sitka to be at Sheldon Jackson College or school, the boarding school. My grandfather actually, he was brought over here when he was 9, and he had a single mom, and his job in the family was to help bring in the fish, and he was working in this fish camp when he was brought here, and so he lost that way of subsistence and that lifestyle by coming over here. But one thing he didn't lose was his language. And I think of him when he was called up to war after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He was 24 years old, and he had been through all of that trauma with not being wanted to have his language when he was in school, and all of that struggle, but he kept it, and then using that language as he went forward in his military career and in his life. I know lots of you know him, so you got some people that know my grandpa. Oh, sorry, my grandpa is Louis Menard. Yeah. And so he continued on with his language and his culture, and was a carver and storyteller at the national park for 27 years in his third career of his life. But we just really we're just really proud, again, really proud to be a part of his legacy that can come forward. My daughter is teaching in the schools for the Sitka tribe and cultural programs, and I get to do cool things like maybe you'll see a story in the Visit Sitka guide that's coming out. I'll give you a little hint that there might be a little history around this in our next guide. So I get to have an influence on sharing our culture here in our community and the stories of our community in my work. At the chamber and Visit Sitka. So I think that kind of covers what I wanted to share. I'd love to hear from other family members and things. So, here, Madison wants to say.
I just wanted to thank you all for being here. Auctioning goodness cheese for everyone that has worked hard to recognize my great grandfather. It means a lot for our family, and not everyone from his family is here today, but we are representing them as well. Auctioning goodness cheese.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful gift. Here is Peter Karras. Peter Karras is the nephew of Mark and Harvey Jacobs.
Good to see you. I'm Keith Wu, WAD, Eagle Killer Whale, and also president of A&B Camp One on my 4th term. And the story I like to say, not to take the light off of my uncles, but as a young man, I had alcohol and drug problems, and as a result, my last few days of being in my drinking and drugging, I actually slept in a car over at A&B, and that was 19 years ago. So I'm clean, it's over 18 years now. And thank you. I give the glory to God. I could not be here. My mother would just not stop praying for me. And so I continue to share that story because I want to give people hope that there is a way out. And I'm very thankful and humbled to be here and actually be a living person of a code talker. And I remember hearing the story about when my uncles saw each other in Bremerton, they just happened to be walking across the property out there and ran into each other, and that's how they found out that Harvey had not gone down on the boat, he had been moved. And one of the things that really stands out to me too is in the movie, if anybody saw it last year, American Legion Post 13 put on was these Navajos were talking, and they were raised as sheepherders, and then were forced to go into non-native schools. And when they became code talkers, one of the gentlemen came up and spoke, and he said, "I did it for our people." And he meant our people, the United States, our people. It wasn't like he did it just for his nation. He did it for our nation. And I want you to really understand what that means. And I wish I would have brought it with me tonight. I just brought I just found it the other day, but over at True Value, they have these different colored plates. And they were, red and yellow, all these different plates. And my daughter, instead of making something out of each piece, she just put them all together. And it came out Army green. I'm not kidding. And it just showed me that we do and will stand as a nation. It sounds bad, but I know that there's some love and some honor and some fight that is like, this is our land, and the Tlingit speak of that too, and this is our land. But we just want to be very careful of the history and how we speak, and do it with honor, do it with love, do it with compassion. And I've been hearing more and more often that we need to call people, not text them, but call people and let them know that you matter, and I miss you, and I love you, and I want to be with you. And one of the things that I'd like to share too is if anybody's ever seen the movie Private Ryan, and at the end he goes up to the cemetery, and he's all these men that had died for him to get home. Now I'm gonna start crying. But he was like, I hope that I lived a life worthy of you dying for me. And we have to have that still in today's society, still in today's world, because that will bind us together and keep us strong and healthy, and we will move forward. There's no losing. There's no, I'm going to give up some ground. Let's move forward. Let's get the
the beat going that we need. And, you know, they started something, with their silence. And now that silence has been broken. So now let's speak up. Because, you know, our silence could be used against us. If we don't say something, then nobody knows how you feel, what you have gone through. And, you know, I think Vince already mentioned that there's probably co-talker, relatives sitting right amongst us that don't even know that you're a co-talker relative, you know? And, which is really amazing, and, I'm both humbled and honored to, have what I have. And I am the living sacrifice of the love and the power of the Lord Jesus Christ. And with that, I'd like to, say a prayer. Mighty God, glorious King, Master, Maker, Controller of everything, I ask you to please forgive me for my sins, wrongdoings. I thank you for all these people that have come out to this honor the co-talkers, and then as a result, honor you. And we just thank you for our nation. We're proud of this nation. We're thankful for it. And we just ask you to be with us and our family, friends, and loved ones. Love us, guide us, direct us, and protect us. Go before us, prepare the day and the way, and help us to walk in it. Please teach us to love you and obey you. And please give us good night's rest. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, amen. We're going to choose.
Step up here. Not because I'm the short. I am also, oh, this is tall. I'm also a pastor. I have to come out here, but I needed to be up here where I can see your beautiful faces. Sheesh, for coming and being a part of this reality, of this celebration. Thank you, Vince. It is my privilege to be one of 7 children of my mom and dad of George Lewis. My father, first my name is Yaya Glen, which means big whale. I was named after my English name is Florence. I'm Major Florence Murray of the Salvation Army here in Sitka. But my English name and my Tlingit name came from my grandmother on my father's side. So it's a real privilege just to have that history. And I tell you, I was shocked the day that I heard anything about Native code talkers and that my father was a code talker. And my reaction was, you gotta be kidding. Why did I say that? Because my father could not keep a secret. But he kept that one. We had no clue. All of our siblings, and we are honored that our father served our country. I've always had a heart for the veteran. And I suppose deep down inside, I realize now that may be why. Not only was he serving in the military in the United States, but he also became a soldier of the Salvation Army, which is really organized in the military structure. If you think about it, we had envoys, lieutenants, captains, majors, all the way up to the general. And so he was a jolly man, really. And he was married before, his family in Washington, but his Alaska family, once my siblings ranged one in Idaho, but the rest still live in Alaska. And he married my mother, Matilda Lewis, who was actually from Klawak. And he had 7 children, and the youngest one was a boy. So you gotta know my parents spoiled the son. But today, he's the one that calls us up, and now that both of our parents have gone to be with the Lord, he's the one that calls us up and asks us how we're doing. So we were not taught our language growing up because my parents refused to teach us, for they were punished when they spoke it in public and especially in the school. And it wasn't until I was 16 that it was now being taught in the school. I am 71 now. And for a long time, we struggled to revive our language. It almost became a dying language, but we're bringing it back. And through a lot of our help with Native teachers, and I do want to say that my father was, I'm trying to stick to my notes so I don't go on bunny trails, but we have, we always would attend the 4th of July parade. In fact, the 4th of July parade seemed to be more important than any other parade. And we'd always line up watching the parade, and I always saw that love and commitment in my father. He was a carpenter, a longshoreman, and he filed saws, and so we moved a lot. I was born in Ketchikan and raised in Sitka, Juneau, and Haines. At the age of 14, when we moved to Haines, we finally settled down. And then 4.5 years later, I got married. And we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. When my father married my mother, we're going on 53 right now, but when my father married my mother, he passed away April 9, about 9 days short of their 50th. And when we celebrated our 50th, I thought back on that celebration that was supposed to happen. And all the stuff was purchased for it. But like any good planner, we just used it toward the services and thanked so many people who came to say farewell at that funeral service for my father. And I was very honored just to know and understand that he was well loved. And he was always had a humorous side to him. He did graduate from Sheldon Jackson College. He was in his 60s, I think. He decided to go get a degree, and that was his sense of humor. He worked hard all his life, and he decided in his 60s he was going to go to Sheldon Jackson College and be a graduate, and he did that. And so it was very important to him throughout our life to keep us connected to our culture. Although he didn't teach us the Tlingit language, he was one of many teachers who taught my husband. So many of you know my husband, Major Joe Murray, and he actually is very fluent in my language. He has actually been invited to Angoon. He'll be going this next week to Angoon for the pardon to the bombardment. And he's been invited to that because he is so well versed in the culture. And my dad had a lot to do with that. And so he's looking forward to being a part of that. And I do have some cassette tapes of my father's voice teaching Tlingit. He taught Tlingit wherever he could. And he wanted to be sure that we understood that the language was very important, even though he didn't teach us. And so I have warm heart and good memories of a jolly man who served his country and who, if he was here today, you couldn't get him to stop talking. He always loved to talk. But the change.
Thank you. We are down to about 32 first language Tlingit speakers. People that grew up speaking it. There are Tlingit classes here. Anybody can join it, UAS. I think of my dad and his brother Harvey, all they spoke together, no matter where they were, was Tlingit. I grew up 2 houses away from my grandparents, and that's all I heard them speaking all the time. One of the things I remember him talking about was the only thing I can really remember was him saying they called radar eyes in the dark, but I don't remember how he said it. And when he was at Iwo Jima, he recorded both flag raisings that took place. At Okinawa, he remembered. He said from April 1st to April 18th, that was round the clock anti-aircraft fire. His station was right underneath a 5-inch gun mount on his ship. Later, he said, when he applied for benefits, the VA told him his hearing loss wasn't combat related. So he never got compensated for that. Remember some of the things he told me when he got back on the buoy out here used to have a horn on it. And he couldn't sleep with that buoy going because it sounded like the wounded men moaning on the ship. When he was fishing, he jumped into the hatch one time and came sailing out, because the first thing that popped into his mind was stepping on a dead body when he was in Saipan, and that duffel bag was an instant flashback. And he had to have his family walk into the hatch with him. They thought it was funny, but it was terrifying to him. A month after Okinawa, my uncle's ship got sunk off of Okinawa. It was still there, got hit by 4 kamikazes. But my uncle had been taken off just before that to do some repairs at Midway. One of the things I remember doing, how many of you have seen Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan? 1998, more than 50 years after World War II ended. I made the mistake of taking my dad to watch that movie. And I could see him, I lost him several times in the movie. He just went out and it rattled him for days. So while we honor the code talkers from every tribe, how many veterans are here? Can you wave, raise your hand? My dad always had this comment, is that even though he was a code talker and served with pride, he never liked to be called a native veteran. He was just a veteran. He said, we all fought for our country. So thank you to all the veterans. That's Chief.
Anybody else would like to speak? So, learned a powerful message tonight. Do not keep it to yourself. Share it. I know this has been recorded tonight. Share the link. The more knowledge we get out there, hopefully we can find more code talkers, and the more we will fight for them. So thank you for spending your night with me, and may the memory of our code talkers forever inspire us to stand tall, to speak the truth, and to fight for freedom of all of our futures. Thank you.
Peter?
I just wanted to make another comment. I believe that Tlingit, Navajo, all the First Nations people, I believe that their name means human. It's not a race. You know, and I need to say that because they, you know, lately because of what's been happening in the world, people are very aware of what Tony is saying. And that shouldn't be. We're human beings. We're from the same family. You know,
I very much appreciate all the nice, well, inspirational stories and information that you shared, these people shared with us tonight. Sitka took on a very real piece for me the other day when Alice Johnstone's daughter came to town after Alice passed. And she said, you know, the first Sitkan to die in World War II was Chuck's younger brother. He was killed at Guadalcanal. And it just kind of demonstrated to me the seriousness of what these gentlemen went through. And most of us probably know Chuck and Alice Johnson, but they never talked about it. So, you know, I just, it's just, you know, having veterans in my family, many have fought in World War II, it is just my pleasure to listen to this and hear them remember. Now to do a pitch for the Historical Society. If you like to hear these kind of stories and keep it alive, join the Historical Society. But thank you very much for coming. We'll see you all later. Have a good day.